Yes, they got married and they were obviously in love, and I don't think she ruined his childhood. He turned out to be an amazing man. Are you guys serious? This video is a response to my first ever true crime video that I posted a year ago. And that video is about the relationship, still weird to call it that, but it's a relationship between Vili Fualaau and Mary Kay Letourneau. If you hear all sorts of scuttling around and background noise, it's because I'm at my parents' and they have a pug and a beagle who are adorable, but obnoxious. If they get too obnoxious, I'm gonna put them away. You hear that? The first thing I have to say is thank you for being here. Thank you for sharing your thoughts and opinions. It means a lot to me. It took a lot out of me to make that video, and knowing that there are so many people, a scary amount of people, who also relate to this whole situation and to my own personal experiences is heartbreaking. It's nice to know I'm not alone in this. But for all the positive comments and positive feedback, there was also a lot of comments that made me double, triple, quadruple take, because I just don't know what planet you live on, to be honest with you. I want to stress at the beginning of this video, like I believe I do with most of my videos, that primarily this is an opinion piece, my opinion. I'm not God. I'm not the boss of anyone.
Who was the boss?
You can have whatever opinions you want. You can share your opinions with me, no matter how rude they are, in the comments, whatever. But what I'm about to share with you is how I feel personally, and opinions built on my own personal experiences. So please don't take this as gospel by any means, but if you can find it in your heart to really listen to what I have to say and take it seriously, I'd really like to share my feelings and viewpoints with you. I was actually shocked because I really thought I was going to get a lot more like roasting, mean comments on this video, but I didn't. For the most part, you just seemed to express the fact that you guys didn't agree with me, or you did agree with me, or that you had a similar experience, or that you didn't understand the experience, or whatever. But there were a couple, there were one or two that were definitely roasting me personally, which is fine, whatever. I got a thick skin, okay? My favorite roast I got is a comment that said, "I didn't know that it's a video of the girl from Growing Pains, Tracy Gold lookalike through the whole thing, whiny voice." I don't know what the age demographic is of people who view this, but I'm guessing a lot of you don't even know what Growing Pains is. Growing Pains is a sitcom that came out in 85, 86. It was awesome. I first saw it on the Disney Channel. The Disney Channel played reruns of it in the 90s, early 2000s, just like they also did Boy Meets World. I don't know if that's also something that anyone under a certain age doesn't know about, but that's how I was introduced to a bunch of sitcoms that started or came out before I was born. So I loved Growing Pains. When I got this comment, I was like, is that the sister? And I looked it up, and it is, and I'm not mad. She's pretty, whatever. You think my voice is whiny? That's fine. Honestly, that's a new one. I've never heard that one before, to be honest with you. Whiny voice is not a comment I've gotten in the past, so hot take, noted. I also got some comments that the context wasn't clear to me. I wasn't sure if they were triggered and mad at me or if they were genuinely interested. For instance, this one says, "Talk about your life." Do you really want me to talk about my life? Are you interested? Or are you roasting me? Are you saying I shouldn't be so interested in the Vili Fualaau, Mary Kay Letourneau story and their lives? Please clarify. I have no problem talking about my life, but I don't know how interesting it will truly be to any of you. If you have not seen the first video and you have no idea what that's about, let me break it down for you really quick. Vili Fualaau and Mary Kay Letourneau started an inappropriate relationship, whatever, when he was 13 years old and she was 30 something, big age gap. She was his 6th grade teacher. She also had a son who was a year younger than him, and they were friends. Mary and Vili became intimate. And at the time, she was going through a divorce and she became pregnant with Vili's child. And so she admitted to her husband that she was pregnant. They were separated at the time, but she thought he deserved to know. And the husband put it together that it was Vili's child. Fast forward a little bit, someone spills the beans. Mary gets called in for questioning and the police tell her that it's a crime and you can't have sex with a 13-year-old child. And she's like dumbstruck by this. She's like, what? How could that be a crime? We're in love. It's very convoluted, honestly. It's a lot. Honestly, you should just watch my video. It's wild. Long story short, Mary gets convicted of child and she's given a sentence that can be anywhere from 6 months to 7 years, but she takes a plea bargain so that she only has to do her time served and then therapy. And the stipulations were that she could have no contact with Vili at all. None, zero, zilch, done. And she's like, yeah, totally, I'll do that. And then basically she gets released from prison and very shortly she and Vili are seeing each other again and they get caught together and she goes back to prison to serve her full 7-year sentence because she broke the terms of her plea bargain. And when she gets in there, goes through intake, has a medical examination, in the short period of time that she was out of prison, that she's pregnant again. And she gives birth in prison to this second daughter. They had 2 daughters, her and Vili. And that made Vili a dad of 2 children at 15 years old. That's nuts, right? It would be totally different. It would still be wild if they were the same age. But the fact that this is a grown woman and a boy and they have 2 kids now is bananas. Mary serves her prison sentence. There's a restraining order against her on behalf of Vili that the state made. They're still secretly talking to each other, maintaining their relationship. Vili is sort of doing his own thing, being a teen. I mean, he's a dad, so not really. He's been through this super traumatic experience and no one really knows. This dog's psycho. And no one really knows what to, girl, this dog right now. She's going in another room. Okay, why is it I see other YouTubers, they have dogs and cats in their videos and they're super chill and not disruptive, but my cat and my parents' dogs are psycho. Why are you psycho? Why can't you just chill? You could stay if you chill. Anyway, Vili can't live a normal life. This whole time, he's maintaining his inappropriate relationship with Mary through secret correspondence. And they're co-parenting. I don't know if any of you have had to co-parent. It's hard. You have to see that person pretty much forever, except for special circumstances. You share children together. Vili comes of age to drop the restraining order against her, and so then they're seeing each other legally. They don't have to sneak anymore. And he has his 2 daughters help him propose to her while she's in prison. And then as soon as she's released from prison, they get married, they move in together, they blend their families, and they raise their kids together. Honestly, it's like the craziest thing I've ever heard. Mary Kay sadly passed away from cancer, and they had been separated for a little bit before he moved back in with her when she got diagnosed, and he took care of her during her final days. He was by her side the whole time. And a lot of people want to point to this and the fact that he dropped the restraining order and married her as proof of their true love. I just think it's proof of Vili Fualaau's character and that he's a really stand-up guy, someone who feels a lot of responsibility for his children and for a woman that he got pregnant, which basically makes him a good man more than anything else. So now you're up to speed on the Mary Kay Vili Fualaau aspect of that video. But there's another factor of that video, which is I shared my personal experience with grooming when I was younger. And again, you probably should go watch that video, get a little better idea. The short version is I went to an acting school for most of my adolescence, had a great time there. Everything else that ever happened there was positive, but I had one teacher who took a special interest in me and groomed me. and we had a full inappropriate relationship that luckily I was able to get myself out of, but it took me many, many years to realize that I had gotten myself out of anything. I had been completely brainwashed that it was 100% something I wanted, my idea, etc. Because that's what grooming is. It's manipulation of children. I had a lot of anxiety when I finally finished putting the video together and uploading it. I was really nervous because not only am I talking about someone else, real people who have real lives and real feelings, which is always scary because truly I don't want to cause anyone pain or suffering or distress. I really don't. I just really felt passionate about sharing this story and my own personal experience so that potentially I could help prevent things like this from happening to young people going forward. The thing that's scary though is you never know how people are going to react to things that you tell them. You don't know if they're gonna take you seriously. You don't know if they're gonna believe you. You don't know if they're gonna say hurtful things that will put you back into a dark place. People are unpredictable. It's part of what makes us really interesting and part of what's scary about life. So I had this feeling of dread and anxiety posting the video, and I did lose sleep over worrying about people coming at me and saying things about my own personal experience, such as, you weren't that young, you knew what you were doing, it's not that big of an age difference, you could have said no, you continued talking to them, you didn't tell any adults. And I just have to tell you that as a person who struggled for several years with the idea that me, the person I believe myself to be, a very strong, opinionated person, not a weak-minded person, not a vulnerable person, was a victim of grooming. It took me till I was almost 30 to come to terms with it fully. So I was really nervous putting myself out there that I would go backward in my healing process. And to be honest with you, life's not perfect. People are gonna have different opinions, whatever. But it's not nice. It's not a good feeling. I feel empathy for people who get a lot of crap, who come forward later on about things that happen to them, because I'd say 9 times out of 10, the reason they didn't want to say anything is because they didn't think anyone would take them seriously. And I get that. I really do. And it's unfortunate. I also have to say, there are a lot of people in life who take advantage of kind, caring people and lie just to manipulate, get their way, whatever. And those people ruin it for everybody else. So if you're making up stories and pretending to be a victim and pretending things happen to you just to ruin someone's life, then shame on you. You're hurting real victims doing that. Okay, so I'm gonna go through the comments that I saved. Okay, this was one that I thought was really, really good. And as of today, 31 people agree with me that it's a good comment. Also, I'm going to read these comments as I believe they were intended to be written if there are spelling errors. So keep that in mind. All teachers at one time or another have students who are infatuated with them. They have a responsibility to move away without hurting their feelings. Yeah, in the previous video, I said it's okay to take a special interest in students who maybe need that support. But if you have inappropriate feelings toward your student, that's icky. That's a huge abuse of power. Huge abuse of power. So how many books, TV shows, movies, etc. have you seen where someone hits on a teacher, like has a game where they're like, oh, I'm gonna try to get the teacher to date me or whatever? That is exactly how Vili ended up in the situation. Basically, is he and his friend had a little bet of who could get Mary's attention, and she entertained that. So if you're the adult in the situation, be the adult in the situation. This is another point that has been floating around my brain. If it was a man, 36 years old, and a 13-year-old student, he would be under the prison. Yeah, I don't understand this viewpoint that a lot of people have. There's a lot of comments like this. And in my research as well, just so many people say that Vili was totally responsible for his actions because he has a penis. Like, what? It doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense to me, because I know for a fact that most people who say this, like on the comments, whatever, if it were reversed, if it was an adult man and a young girl, they'd be furious. Like this comment says, in prison, that man would be under the prison. Pedophiles get killed in prison. Why is Mary getting special treatment because she's a woman? Women can be abusers. It doesn't matter what gender you are or you identify as, you can still be an abuser, and it's still wrong. I get especially hot under the collar about this because I have two sons. I have two sons and a daughter. And my older son, he's 12. So that's 1 year younger than Vili Fualaau was when he and Mary started their relationship, number one, which makes my skin crawl. And if it doesn't make your skin crawl, then I have questions about your sanity. Okay, I do. I have questions and concerns because that's disgusting. It's disgusting. If a woman or a man or anybody started a relationship with my 12-year-old son, or 13, in a few months when he's 13, because he's almost 13 now, I would probably go to prison for murder because no one touches my babies. But there's no situation where that's gonna be okay with me, because it's not okay. And I've also received comments from people talking about, well, back in the day, we got married earlier and we had more responsibilities earlier and blah, 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 blah. And in ancient times, when we didn't have all of these modern concerns, if people weren't so dependent on technology and stuff, that people would be mature already and men would be men when they're in puberty. And I literally only hear this about boys. Again, I don't have statistics on this, okay? But in my personal experiences, I have only ever heard this about boys and men. When it's about boys and men, it's like, well, men are in puberty and they do manly things and they blah, blah, blah. And no, okay? No, it's 2022, all right? It's a different world now. My 12-year-old, almost 13-year-old, not ready to be a dad, not ready to be in a relationship with someone, especially not a woman in her 30s or a man in his 30s or whatever. It's wrong, it's gross, it's unnecessary. I don't care what people are doing in other countries. I don't care what the rules are state by state, whatever, okay? Just because something is legally okay doesn't make it morally okay. And I'm not talking morally like from a religious standpoint, although I will tell you I am a religious person. Religion aside, morally, it is gross and wrong and inappropriate to, of all the fish in the sea, have a relationship with a child. And if you don't agree with me on that point, that's concerning to me, truly. Reevaluate your life. Here is a perfect comment to start out the Mary is a martyr comments, because let me tell you, some of these people, not just on my comment thread, go on Reddit, Quora Digest, whatever, they are like simping for Mary Kay Letourneau, and I don't get it. I really don't. It's weird. But this comment is the perfect embodiment of what I'm talking about. Again, she is crucified. Get real. The truth is she didn't get pregnant by herself. I wish people would stop blaming women as if they are solely responsible for whatever situation is between man and woman. Mary was very immature regardless of her age. This is so obvious. If the roles were reversed, male teacher and female student, I definitely would view this in a different light. So just to clarify, you are openly admitting to be a hypocrite and sexist. Truly. That's sexism. Let's be real. In this particular situation, there was an undeniable depth of love that even the government couldn't extinct? Or put the flames out. So many cases of fathers molesting their daughters only receiving a 2 or 3 year prison sentence. Truly unfair, a miscarriage of justice, no matter how you look at it. Listen, I'm not gonna argue with you about the miscarriage of justice of people molesting children and getting light sentences. I think we can agree that that's gross and not cool, and something needs to be done about that, for sure. We're on the same page here. But you openly admitting that if it were reversed and it was a woman or a young girl being victimized, that your opinion would be different is just you being sexist. Like I said before, that's very sexist. Why aren't you concerned about young men? What did young men, young boys do to deserve that opinion from you? That you would literally sit here, type away and say, well, if it were a girl, then I'd have a different opinion, but because it's a man, boo-hoo. Get real, okay? I'm so over this crap. Seriously, over it. He participated. It takes two to get pregnant. Yes, I would say anyone who's taken a biology class or a health class would agree that it takes at least two people to get pregnant. Nowadays, it can take a whole team of experts to get someone pregnant, but I digress. Woman in her 30s, 13-year-old boy. It is known that Vili Fualaau had sexual experiences early on in his life. He has openly talked about that. Again, blows my mind how many people have chosen to believe that that made him ready to be in a sexual relationship with anyone, especially a woman in her 30s. Because I know personally a lot of male friends who had people, mostly girls their age. They would get them to play games where they were having sex or doing sexual favors, but it's a game, and basically molested and these boys their age. Because number one, depending on how naive they are to sex and intimacy, they might not even know what's going on. And then two, I've had several male friends tell me that they have been specifically taken advantage of and by women at any age, but I'm talking about specifically childhood, teens, preteens, whatever, because they did not want to hurt their feelings. And they didn't want rumors to get spread about them, like they're not manly enough to do intimate things with a girl, or that maybe they don't like girls because they didn't want to be intimate with a girl. I'm hoping stuff like this is less prevalent nowadays, because clearly as a society, we now accept all sorts of different gender identities, couplings, etc. The fact that there is this underlying issue with hetero men, cisgender, that your manhood gets questioned because you don't want to do something sexual with someone is really nasty. And I don't believe, and again, this is just based off of my own experiences, I don't believe that's a stigma placed on ladies. I think it's mostly on men, specifically heterosexual men. And it's yucky. So what's my point in this tangent? Why are we assuming that Vili Fualaau, when he had these first sexual experiences, that wasn't also inappropriate and taking advantage of him? Because in my research, the information I found says that those girls, even though they were also young, they were older than him. So isn't that also kind of sketchy? Why are we putting all the responsibility on a child? Why would we ever do that? Someone commented on that comment and said, she certainly wasn't taking any precautions against it, to which I agree. Again, woman in her 30s, 13-year-old boy. Let's treat Vili like a kid, okay? A kid, for instance, my kids, have to remind them every morning, put your shoes on, brush your teeth, put your deodorant on, remember to bring all your binders and books to school, etc. We're thinking that 13-year-old kids are super concerned about protection? Even with like the sex ed you get, and I'm sure it's different in different places, but where I grew up in America, we had sex ed in 7th grade and then again in 9th grade, but they were very different curriculums. When I had sex ed in 7th grade, they weren't exactly like, everyone use a condom, like get on birth control, because we were 12. And I know what you're gonna say. People have sex all the time, blah, 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 like, okay, whatever. But the reality is, in my opinion, you have no business having sex unless you are ready to take responsibility for any child that becomes created as a direct result of that intimacy. That's my opinion. You can hate on me all you want, whatever. But as someone who had an unplanned pregnancy as a young adult and has raised a pretty awesome 12-year-old, I will tell you, if you're going to be doing adult activities, then you need to be ready to take adult responsibility for those activities. And I'm just purely right now talking about consensual relationships, not talking about anything else. Okay. Point being, I don't think kids in middle school and elementary school, depending on where you live and how your schools are set up, are ready for the adult responsibilities that come with intimacy. Therefore, you should not be doing it. I'm not naive. I know some people will still be doing it, but I think if we're realistic here, most people are going to say 12, 13-year-olds shouldn't be having sex. That doesn't mean they aren't, but it means they shouldn't. Therefore, why would we assume that the person who's not mentally or emotionally mature enough to handle being a father would be thinking about protection when he's dating an adult woman who has access to a doctor who can prescribe her birth control, or she can go and buy condoms because she's a grown woman? Why is all the blame on Vili? Stop hating him because he has a penis. It's weird.
This is getting weird.
I believe this no is like sassy in response to like something I said in my video or in the title or something. But it's no because they genuinely loved each other. Who are you or anyone to deny two people of their love? You sound just like Mary Kay. If it was just about sex, they wouldn't have gotten married and stayed together as long as they did. He stayed by her side till she passed away. Why are we assuming it's because of love? And I'm talking like pure love, real love. Why are we not saying no? Because Vili Fualaau was really responsible and he took on a fatherhood role for his children, and he also felt the weight of the world on his shoulders because the woman that he had a secret relationship with had to like serve prison time, and she manipulated and abused him into feeling like that was his fault. Why isn't that what we're saying? Also, he stayed by her side till she passed away because he's been conditioned to believe that he owes her that. You're trying to demonize something that comes naturally to all living mammals. Do we make animals not procreate because of big differences in age? I'm actually looking at this from a neutral standpoint, not saying it's right or wrong, nor am I necessarily trying to justify it. To demonize her, in my opinion, is unfair. She herself said she didn't know she was doing something wrong in the eyes of the law. Again, from a moral standpoint, why would you think you can have sex with a child when you're 30? Why? Like, I'm sick to death of that. I'm sick of it. First of all, she knew damn well it was a crime. She knew damn well, okay? And two, I'm laughing because it's awful, okay? Laughter is my defense mechanism. Two, you can't have sex with a child. It's wrong. If you need a law to tell you that, then you're sick in the head. That's like if one of my friends wanted to have a relationship with my son. That's gross. She may have said to herself that she's in love or even just lust and let nature dictate the rest. Your problem is that you're just narrow-minded and see things from a single perspective. Before humans made these laws, you think people still followed them? How about you go out to the jungle and find an indigenous tribe where it's done commonly and tell them it's wrong? Why are people so hung up on this? I don't get it. And I'm saying this in all seriousness, and I don't mean any judgment to other people's beliefs or other cultures. I think the average person you asked would say, if it were reversed, if it was a girl who was young and an older man, they'd be like, ew, even though someone would be like, well, what if you go out to the jungle and find an indigenous tribe? Like, people would still say, that's wrong, that's taking advantage of women. But because it's a man, it's like not the same. For real, if you believe that both ways, it doesn't matter if it's a young girl or a young boy, and you feel the same way, okay, I can respect that. I can respect that viewpoint. I don't agree with it, but I can respect it as long as it's equal. If you're saying it's okay because it's a boy, and it's not okay if it's a young girl, then I don't have respect for your opinion. I don't. You're the same type of hypocrite that will eat a pig, chicken, or flesh from a cow and then say you love animals because you have a cat or a dog and won't send them to a slaughterhouse. That's the real problem with humans. All the hypocrisy. There is a lot of hypocrisy with humans. It's part of living in this world and being an individual. I don't love when people make comparisons of things that are not comparable. And I think the manipulation of a young child through sex is vile, and I don't think it's anything like whether or not you eat a cow. Your comment was ridiculous. He genuinely loved her and she loved him. It had nothing to do with control. Absolutely nothing. I think this would be a great time to play you my favorite, and I say that with hard cringe, clip from one of the many interviews they did throughout their marriage.
Who was
I'm
the
talking
boss?
about you.
Who was the boss?
What was his name?
Who was the boss?
What?
Who was the boss back
You know,
then?
there was me pursuing you. But
Who was the boss back then?
this is ridiculous.
No,
This
who
is
was?
ridiculous.
Who was? Just say.
Just say.
Who was the boss?
All I knew was what I knew back then.
But who was the boss?
He was 13, Mary.
But who was the boss?
This is getting weird.
Who was the boss? Who?
I'm pursuing the relationship.
Who was the boss?
Well, I was the pursuer.
Yes.
I think people like you are actually just jealous because you can't hold a steady relationship, and if you did get married, it would end in a few months. Bam! 7 years, baby. Read it and weep. Nowhere have I read or heard Vili ever vindictively say or suggest she stole his life. She did not. I've seen this a few times now, and I feel like either you didn't watch my whole video or you haven't done very good research. He specifically addresses in different interviews that she did have a big effect on his life, and it wasn't a positive one in a lot of ways, but that he doesn't look back on the past with anger and defeat because he wants to move forward and see the positive in life. And you know, he has 2 daughters that he loves from Mary, so he's not going to dwell on the past. There's specific interviews where he says that it was wrong and that he doesn't understand where she was coming from as an adult, because he thinks to himself, I could never be with a young girl who was my age when we started our relationship. Here, have some proof.
What she did was wrong.
Legally, yeah, it was wrong.
Morally?
Morally, I think maybe we should have waited.
You didn't have the maturity to make a decision like that.
No, I would say no.
There was only one of the parties that could stand back at a distance from a bird's eye view and say, hang on, what am I doing here?
I think about that kind of stuff a lot.
Even now?
Even now, because I'm 35 now. So I think about it, you know, like, could I have ever done that? Could I have ever been with a girl that's 13 years old right now? And I just can't see myself doing it.
I will forever remember this story as a unique, one-of-a-kind story, and not a pedophile story, as the media and many have portrayed and made it out to be. Listen, I've heard this a lot too. Mary Kay's not a pedophile. She only had one relationship with one young boy. That doesn't mean she's a pedophile. That just means she was genuinely in love with a man. No. She was genuinely in love with a boy, a young boy, as sixth grader in her class. She was his teacher. She was in a power position, an authority position over him. You want to make this argument about age? Fine. Scratch the age. She was his teacher. That is an abuse of power. Back to the age. Yes, if you have romantic feelings towards a child, you're a pedophile. I understand that there's this weird gray zone where people say, well, they don't look their age. But the thing is, they are that age. It doesn't matter that they're not looking that age. They are that age. And once you know they're that age, or for instance, if you're their teacher and you see them every day and you know like what their age is and see them with their peers and know they're a child, that's pedophilia. Okay, it is. It was very wrong. However, once he was an adult and married her, after she did 7 years' time, I don't think people should have kept bringing it up to them. Okay, so we've reached the point in this video where I'm going to address the difference between having an inappropriate relationship with a child and having a weird relationship with a man that you groomed when he was a child. Everything that happened when Vili was underage is 100% wrong. and all bad. The only thing positive about it is that that is when they had their children, and children are a blessing. Clearly, those two girls felt very loved and taken care of by their parents, no matter how weird the situation was. So that's good. That's the two different people, two good things that happened out of that situation. Everything else was a nightmare. It should have never happened. Bad, 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 bad. Can't say that enough. Not okay. When he became an adult, here's where things get hairy. Legally, it's fine now. Legally. Morally, to me, it's some sort of form of Stockholm syndrome or something, because she was in prison. He could have been like free of her. He could have gone on with his life. Granted, young dad tied to her forever through children, so that is an element that is hard to deal with if you're trying to move on with your life. But clearly she had control over him in this situation because he went back. And people want to say it's because of the true love. But no, it's because of the grooming. He was groomed to be attached to her for the rest of his life. Her having those babies really kept him trapped with her forever, because even if they had never gotten back together romantically, they would have had to co-parent those girls. She only served a certain amount of time in prison. 7 years is a long time, but you know, she got out and she lived her life and did other things with her life after. It's hard to co-parent. It's hard to see someone every day and not feel some sort of way, especially when you're in your formative years and someone has a really strong impact on you. And with that, manipulation of intimacy is really nasty to me, because it makes someone care for you on a level that is so deep. And it's hard to compare when you think you've had an experience at a young age that's like really special and deep, then nothing compares to it after. And that's another reason you become trapped in this cycle of abuse, because you don't think you're ever gonna find anything equivalent to what you had with your abuser. Again, I want to reiterate, I said this in my original video too. They're girls, they are real people with real feelings and their own lives. And I wouldn't wish that they were never born or that they didn't have an opportunity to live. That would be nasty. That's what makes it so hard, because this comment is true about how they were a family, and it's hard to bring something up to people, you know, once everyone is legal. And you know, as much as you disagree with a person, they're an adult, they can make their own choices. How many people do you know who are like severe addicts, but they're adults? So you can't like force them into a rehab, and you can't like yank drugs out of their hands and bottles out of their fridge. Like, they are an adult making their own decisions. That doesn't mean that they're good decisions. It just means that you can't do anything about it. Absolutely no disrespect to their children. I don't want them to ever, I mean, I doubt they will, but if they ever saw this or my other video, I would hope they wouldn't come away with the feeling personally attacked and like their existence isn't valid or anything like that, because I don't think that. I think everything happens for a reason. And the only reason I'm bringing it up at all, original video and now, is because I got so passionately invested in this because I could relate to it myself through my own experiences. I also pursued a relationship at 15 with a 25-year-old. I was very persistent. It felt so cool to be with someone that older. Fortunately, I got lucky. The man did not feel good about it and called it quits. I was devastated then. Now I feel so grateful. Although he liked me, he didn't want to ruin my childhood. This is everything. If someone really did care about someone who was a minor, I don't think you would ever cross that line. Honestly, I don't think you would even mention that there could be a relationship potentially ever, because it's not appropriate. And if you really cared about a person, you would not want to ruin their childhood, ruin their lives. And it's just interesting to me how many people have had similar experiences to what I went through. It's creepily common. That's part of why I feel like it needs to be addressed. Not because I want to do a hit piece on Mary Kay Letourneau and slam her, especially now that she's dead and she can't speak for herself. No, that's not it at all. It's just because this whole thing, it's bigger than Mary Kay and Vili. This is something that happens all the time, and it's not okay. It's so common. That should disturb you. It disturbs me. There's also several comments I got, mostly on Instagram. Men would say things like, I wish I had a teacher like her. And I've seen this on other stories too of inappropriate relationships between female teachers and male students. It's this weird porn fantasy thing. It's okay to have a fantasy. It's not okay to act on stuff. And you have to know, you have to understand, that would be grooming and pedophilia if it happened to you. Like, it wouldn't be good. Like, you don't wish that. I think hormonal teenagers, gender aside, want to have sex. It doesn't mean that adults should be like, you know what, I got you. Let's have a relationship. I think a lot of you are just joking around and are like, I'm being funny, this is funny. It's like not though, because it's only hurting you. Men, don't make it harder for yourself. Sometimes being too close to the person, friendship may no longer stand in the way of being strict. A person can easily break the rules to protect someone that she loves. Again, I don't think you really love someone if you're willing to violate them. There were a lot of comments people made saying, well, look at how Vili turned out. He's so awesome. Thanks to Mary Kay that he's so great. She didn't ruin his life or his childhood at all, which is mind-boggling, honestly, that could be anyone's viewpoint. But there were a lot of people in the comments who did a fantastic job explaining exactly how I feel about those comments. People who were abused turn out to be amazing humans every day. That doesn't negate the fact that he was abused and groomed from 12, and she first met him from when he was 8. This is another thing that gets left out a lot. Mary Kay didn't meet him for the first time when he was like 12, 13. She was his first grade teacher. She knew him for a while. Let that marinate in your brain. If you ask me, this love screams more Stockholm syndrome, groomed manipulation, a sense of obligation, duty, and coercive control rather than actual love. Yes, I agree 100%. Couldn't have said it better myself. How would you feel if it was your 12-year-old son or daughter? I doubt you would be keen on their love story then. For real, and if you would be keen on that love story, maybe you shouldn't be a parent, because that's weird. You couldn't have said it better. I don't understand how people are saying they loved each other when it was so obvious she groomed this boy into believing she was his all and all. Yeah, of course he went back and married her and did all the right things by her. She groomed him to be that person. She forced that on him. She forced that sense of responsibility. She put all that guilt, all that weight on him. How is that love? It's really simple to understand for me. He felt cool and wanted because he hit the teacher. He didn't get the unconditional love from his prime family. Then she got pregnant. He did not want to abandon his kids the way he was left by his father. So he stayed for the kids. In all the interviews, he never said he stayed because he loved Mary Kay. He stayed and even married and tried to look happy for the kids. Mary Kay is a disturbed person. I pity her. She had no remorse even though she ruined a lot of lives. For true love, come on, this is real life, not a Disney fairy tale. Be an adult. You can kill other lives for your true love? What is that? No wonder he had alcohol and drug addiction and depression. He managed to go all through this lifetime abuse without causing damage to his kids and himself. I am so sorry for him. That was perfect. That said everything I want to say and more, honestly. Although, I do have some pity for Mary Kay, I guess, but not really. Honestly, not really. I'm not trying to speak ill of the dead or whatever. If you want to come for me in the comment section, so be it, but I just don't really have any respect for her. Because let's get real for a second. You want to know why I don't have any respect for her? She did this interview. I used a lot of clips from this interview. I believe it's an Australian news channel, did an exclusive interview with the two of them. The journalist, he's like badass, love that guy. He said all the things we wanted to say and more. He really made Mary Kay talk about stuff and tried to get her to take responsibility for things, and it was awesome. But in that interview, she said all sorts of wackadoodle things about how it was never wrong because she didn't know it was a legal crime, And even though it is a legal crime, it doesn't matter because you can't pretend like preteens and teens aren't having sex anyway. So who cares? And the interviewer is like, yeah, but they're not having sex with 30-year-olds and up. Like, they're having sex with each other, which is like its own thing. But what you're talking about is not okay. Like, morally not okay. Like what I've been saying. And she just doubled down. Like, she had so many opportunities to be like, it was legitimately wrong. And she just never took responsibility that way. And it just irks me because I really struggle to have empathy for a person who could cause so much pain, specifically to a person they claim to love, and not admit it and not say, yes, I did a bad thing. I'm gonna try and make up for it for the rest of my life. If she could have at least said that, I probably would have more empathy for her. She just stuck to her guns on it. I didn't even know who Mary Kay Letourneau was until 4 months ago, back in March of this year. I believe 2021 now. I wish I didn't. Me too. I think for the sake of his kids, we have to let this go because that is their mom. Yes, again, no disrespect to the kids, and it's hard because it is their mother. A lot of this heat, a lot of the shade I'm throwing is at their mother. I get that would be rough to hear. So many people are great people who have unideal home situations or shady parents. Again, no disrespect. Those girls, they can love their mom and respect their mom, or however, I don't know. I have not spoken to them personally. However they feel about their mother and their father and their relationship and all of that, that's fine. I'm not trying to say anyone should feel any sort of way. I'm not the boss.
Who was the boss?
Yeah, that's just like the last thing I'd ever want anyone to think, that I'm trying to like shove this down their kid's throat or something, or make a big deal out of it to try to say like their family wasn't legit and the love they felt from their parents wasn't legit. Like, there's a lot of genuine good moments that happen in a lot of really crappy situations in life. There's friendships I've had with people that when we were friends, like we had a really great friendship and good times, but then when our friendship disintegrated and fell apart, that sucked, but it still didn't negate the good times. There can be good times in the bad times. They didn't choose to fall in love. I followed their story from the beginning. Don't judge other people. As a rule, I generally don't judge other people. However, in this situation that I personally can relate to, I'm judging. I'm judging hard. And honestly, so should you. So should everybody. Because this is not a thing that should happen. It should not happen. We should be protecting children from this. We should not be saying on the internet, publicly, whatever, that this is a thing that is fine. Don't judge them. No, there can be some judgment. There are things you can pass judgment on that are just morally wrong things. So what's wrong? Age is just a number. I like older women too. Again, there's nothing wrong with someone dating someone older than them as long as you're adults. Or, so there's like this weird gray area because like, let's say you're 17 and your boyfriend is like 20. The reality is like, that's not that big of a deal, truthfully, like just maturity wise. People still will have an issue. Like if a 21-year-old marries like a 45-year-old, I don't think that's the same as Mary and Vili when he was 13 and she was 30. I think it's different. There's a major difference. So don't misunderstand me. I don't think all age differences are bad, but I do think preying on children is bad. So here's a couple other thoughts that I have. The way people view this stuff is so drastically different depending on who you talk to. Like I said before, certain age differences I don't consider grooming or inappropriate as much as I just find them odd, maybe. In this particular situation, it's rough to see people putting all this pressure on a young boy. Basically that it's his fault, even to the extreme of he should have been using protection. Everyone should use protection. but to be more annoyed at a 13-year-old boy about not using protection than the fact that he was groomed by a 30-year-old teacher in a power position over him, it blows my mind. There is a narrative pushed in media about the twisted love stories of older men or women and younger children, teens, who maybe they're students, maybe they're just their child's friend or whatever, and it's like, ooh, spicy romance. Wait, can we stop? It's not helpful. It really isn't. It's helping people be predators. You want to help predators be predators? As usual, I'd love to hear your thoughts in response to my thoughts about your thoughts. Thank you for being here. Take care of yourselves. I'm planning on having more true crime content coming out soon. The summer was kind of crazy for me because I'm a mom. The kids are my priority, but I have a little more free time now, so hopefully new stuff is coming out soon. Stay safe out there and be kind.